In the ancient land of Israel, long after the legendary King David had united the 12 tribes, there arose a new king, a young man named Solomon. When the mantle of the kingdom was placed upon his shoulders, he was a fresh-faced, earnest youth, and in a dream the Lord appeared to him, offering him anything he desired. It was a choice that would echo through history. A lesser man might have asked for power, for a long life, or for victory over his enemies. But Solomon, in a moment of profound humility and foresight, asked for none of these. He simply asked for a wise and discerning heart to govern his people. The Lord was so pleased with this request that he not only granted him wisdom beyond any man who had come before or would come after, but also promised him the riches and honor he had not asked for. This was the true secret to his boundless wealth. It was not a treasure he sought, but a consequence of the unparalleled wisdom he was given. His wisdom was not just an abstract concept. It was a practical, tangible force that transformed his kingdom. The most famous early example was the judgment of the 2 harlots who both claimed the same living baby. As the 2 women stood before him, weeping and arguing, Solomon listened to their impassioned pleas. His court was packed, and the people held their breath, watching how the new, young king would handle this impossible dispute. His solution, to cut the living child in 2 and give half to each woman, was so shocking and simple that it immediately revealed the true mother's heart. Her cry, "Please, my lord, give her the living baby. Just don't kill him," was the proof he needed. This single act of profound insight, a wisdom that could look past words to the very soul of a person, sent a clear message across the land and beyond. This was a king who could not be deceived, and a ruler who would bring a new kind of order to the world. It was this reputation for unmatched wisdom that laid the foundation for his economic prosperity. Leaders and emissaries from all corners of the known world began to seek his counsel, bringing him gifts and treasures simply to hear his words. The flow of gold, silver, and precious stones was a river that swelled with each passing year. Solomon was a master of diplomacy, a genius of trade, and a visionary of construction. He understood that peace was the most profitable of all endeavors, and his wisdom allowed him to forge unbreakable alliances with neighboring kingdoms. The most significant of these was with King Hiram of Tyre, a master sailor and merchant. Through this alliance, Solomon gained access to Hiram's vast fleet and his knowledge of the seas. Together, they built a powerful navy at a port called Ezion-Geber on the Red Sea. From there, Solomon's ships, captained by Phoenician sailors, embarked on epic 3-year voyages to the far-off land of Ophir. The tales of these journeys alone could fill a book. They sailed into the unknown, navigating by the stars, braving storms and monsters of the deep, returning with staggering amounts of gold, over 1,000 tons in total, according to some accounts. But that was not all. They also brought back silver that became so common in Jerusalem that it was said to be as plentiful as stones. Along with the precious metals came exotic goods that had never been seen in Israel: sandalwood, vibrant fabrics, and living treasures like monkeys and peacocks, their bright feathers shimmering in the desert sun. His building projects were a spectacle of wealth and power. He built the majestic first temple in Jerusalem, a house for God that was 7 years in the making. The scale and luxury were unimaginable. The entire interior was lined with solid cedar wood, and then overlaid with pure gold. The holy vessels, the altars, even the hinges of the doors were crafted from gold, and the very ground of the sanctuary was paved with it. Alongside the temple, he constructed his own royal palace, a sprawling complex that took 13 years to complete and was even more magnificent than the temple itself. The palace throne was a work of art and a symbol of his power, an immense seat of ivory, overlaid with the purest gold, with 6 steps leading up to it, guarded by 12 golden lions, one on each side of every step. His daily life reflected this grandeur. His banquets were legendary, consuming enough provisions in a single day to feed thousands, and his drinking vessels were all made of gold, for silver was considered too common for his royal table. His wealth was not hoarded, it was displayed, a visible manifestation of his divine blessing and a testament to his unmatched wisdom. He was a king who ruled an empire not with an iron fist, but with a golden touch. It was this very reputation for unparalleled wisdom and boundless wealth that reached the ears of the Queen of Sheba. She was the monarch of a prosperous kingdom in what is now Ethiopia and Yemen, a woman of great intelligence and power in her own right. Tales of a king in a distant land, whose wisdom was as vast as his treasury, were whispered in her court, but she refused to believe them fully. She thought it was impossible for one man to possess such gifts, so she decided to undertake an immense journey, traveling over 1,000 miles across unforgiving deserts with a magnificent caravan to see for herself. Her procession was a spectacle of opulence, a demonstration of her own wealth, laden with spices, gold, and precious stones, a tribute, but also a challenge. She came not to bow down, but to test him, to prove him with hard questions. When she arrived in Jerusalem, she was not disappointed. She was completely overwhelmed by the reality of the city's grandeur and the king's magnificence. The sheer scale of his palace, the order and beauty of his court, the precise service of his ministers, and the lavishness of his feasts were beyond anything she had ever imagined. She was utterly astounded by the sight of his officials dressed in fine linen and the endless stream of goods flowing into the city. But the real test was his wisdom. She asked him all the hard questions that had been on her mind, riddles, paradoxes, and complex inquiries about the nature of existence and the world. With effortless grace, King Solomon answered every one of them. Nothing was too difficult for him to solve. The Queen of Sheba was not just impressed, she was completely undone. She declared, "The report I heard in my own country about your achievements and your wisdom is true, but I did not believe these things until I came and saw with my own eyes. Indeed, not even half was told me. In wisdom and wealth, you have far exceeded the report I heard." Her visit was a meeting of 2 great minds and 2 powerful kingdoms, a moment that sealed his global reputation. She bestowed upon him a massive gift of gold, spices, and precious stones, and Solomon, in turn, gave her everything she desired. The encounter was one of mutual respect and admiration, a deep bond formed between 2 legendary rulers. But it was in his relationships with women that Solomon's story took its most complex and, ultimately, tragic turn. His fame and diplomatic brilliance meant that kings from all corners of the world sought alliances with him, and the common practice was to seal these pacts with marriage. The Queen of Sheba was a magnificent, powerful equal, but she was not the only woman in his life. According to the accounts, King Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. This was not simply a matter of personal desire. Each marriage was a political treaty. He took wives from Egypt, Moab, Ammon, Edom, Sidon, and from the Hittites. His love for these foreign women was so great that he allowed them to worship their own gods. Imagine the chaos this created. He, the man who built a magnificent temple for the one true God, began to build altars for other deities. On the hills surrounding Jerusalem, he constructed high places for Chemosh, the god of Moab, and for Molech, the god of Ammon. This was the great paradox of his life. The wisdom that had brought him unparalleled wealth and fame also led him to a slow, spiritual decline. In his old age, his many wives turned his heart away from the God who had granted him everything. His immense power and diplomatic success, fueled by his wisdom, had also isolated him from the very spiritual foundation of his rule. The man who had once asked only for a discerning heart began to tolerate and even participate in the worship of false gods. This wasn't a sudden, dramatic betrayal, but a slow, gradual erosion of his faith, driven by the desire to maintain his vast network of political alliances and keep his kingdom in peace. He was the greatest diplomat of his time, but his success on earth came at a cost to his soul. In the end, his legacy became a double-edged sword. He had built the magnificent temple, a symbol of his divine connection, but his own life became a temple to foreign gods. His kingdom flourished under his wise rule, but the seeds of its destruction were sown by his wives' influence. After his death, the kingdom, unable to hold together without his unique wisdom, fractured and split into two. The secret to his wealth was his wisdom, but the secret to his fall was his inability to let that same wisdom guide his heart and mind in all things. The story of King Solomon is a cautionary tale of a man who was given everything he could ever need, only to lose the most important thing of all.